Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dan White, District Superintendent for the First Supervisory District of Monroe County, or otherwise known as Monroe No. 1 BOCES. Welcome to public hearing this afternoon on November 30th, 2021 for the New York State Education Department State Monitor for the Rochester City School District. Do some introductions for you. Again, I'm Dan White, District Superintendent, Monroe and BOCES. Have with us this afternoon the New York State Education Department State Monitor, Dr. Jallow. Also with us is the Rochester City School District Superintendent, Dr. Leslie C. Myers-Small. And we do have representatives, I believe, from the State Education Department on as well, as including a number of commissioners for the Rochester City School District. I want to talk about a few virtual meeting protocols. After the monitor has finished up her presentation, we were to open it up, the meeting for questions. Anyone who had submitted a request to speak will be then given 3 minutes to talk and will be called by name when it is their turn. I've been informed that we do not have individuals that have signed up to speak this evening. It is important to note, however, for those of you listening to the monitor's report, that you can still submit comments to the state monitor at the email address listed on this slide, that is statemonitor@rcsdk12.org. I'll remind you of that at the end of the meeting, but you're still able to make public comment on this in writing through that means. I'm now going to turn it over to the state monitor, Dr. Jallow.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, one and all. Thank you for attending this public hearing on the updated version of the academic and financial plan. This is the second time that I have worked with a public hearing on these plans. And for this evening, we've decided to combine the plans together. So you'll be hearing about the academic and the financial plan this evening. Statutory authority of the state monitor. Chapter 56 of the laws of 2020 required the Commissioner of Education to appoint a state monitor to Rochester City School District to provide oversight, guidance, and technical assistance relating to the academic and fiscal policies, practices, programs, and decisions of Rochester City School District, the Board of Education, and the Superintendent. On May 26, 2020, I was appointed by the Interim Commissioner Tahoe as the Rochester City School District State Monitor. Next slide, please. Or am I moving? Some of the responsibilities are as such. Serve as the non-ex officio member of the board. I hear that we have some auditory problems. Is anybody else experiencing that? Assist the board in adopting a conflict of interest policy that ensures board members and administrators act in the district's best interests. Work with the board to develop a proposed academic improvement plan and proposed financial plan for the district no later than November 1st, 2020 for the 2021 school year and the 4 subsequent school years. Beginning with the 21-22 school year budget, ensure that the budget is balanced and consistent with the district's long-term financial plan. Next, please. Provide semi-annual reports on the academic, fiscal, and operational status of the district.
Her audio is fine.
Assist in resolving any disputes and conflicts between the superintendent and the board among members of the board. Authority to disapprove travel outside the state paid for by the district. Recommend cost savings measures, including but not limited to shared service agreements, and notify the board in writing of violations of the academic and/or financial plan. On August 6, 2021, Commissioner Betty Rosa informed the Rochester City School District of additional SRSA and ARP funding conditions. Those conditions included authorizing the state monitor to approve SRSA and ARP spending plans before submission to New York State Ed for final approval. The financial plan that has been followed for the last 12 months or so since my arrival was divided into these categories: general fiscal practices, governance and programmatic decision-making, legal and financial audits, budget development, organizational structure and internal efficiency, transportation. In these key areas, the percentages next to each area represents the percentage of recommendations that were rated that were completed in a timely and complete fashion. So 36% of the recommendations that were rated were completed satisfactorily in a timely fashion, 50% for governance and programmatic decision-making, 75% for budget development, and 40% and 80% subsequently for the last two categories. As you can see, legal and financial audits, out of the areas that were rated, 0% were rated green or proceeding on time in a timely fashion. Next slide, please. The financial performance, I think it's important to take a look back at some of the progress and that was made in the past financial plan. We were able to raise the credit rating from Moody's that supports lower interest rates when borrowing in the municipal market. This is a huge accomplishment for the district. To be able to increase the credit rating for the district not only supports the district, but supports the city as a whole. Elimination of the need to have a revenue anticipation note, or better known as a RAN. This means less money was needed to be borrowed by the district, and that is always a good thing, not to have to borrow as much money. So we're happy about that accomplishment as well. Produce a balanced budget, which is one of the core responsibilities under the financial plan for the state monitor, with an increased fund balance. Reduce the use of P cards. The P cards, or the management of P cards, has been noted not only by myself, the state monitor, but by the distinguished educator and by various consultants prior to my arrival. So we're very happy that protocols and procedures have been in place to reduce the use of P cards and make sure that the proper use of P cards is included. Funded the beginning of a transition to a financial management system. I'm very happy with this accomplishment. This is the opportunity to update a system that has not been updated in over between 9 and 10 years. So we think that this is an opportunity for the finance side of the house and the human resources side of the house, as well as technology, to come together and have a system that can support the district in a more profound and efficient way. Over here, the school district financial performance. This is a long-range forecast supported with the help of the finance department and other individuals outside of the district who have finance backgrounds to give a forecast as such about the 22, 23, 24, and 25 budget. As you can see in red, we still have a deficit, but as you can see, as year-end balance, we have been able to increase the balance, but looking towards the future, that is an area of concern in terms of the year-end balances over the years to come. This is just a projection. It's based on many assumptions, and it's based on ideas of things that are insecure and we're not sure of, but this is our best projection at this point in time. But I want to make a note that it is subject to change. General fiscal, these are some of the changes to the plan that I am proposing for the second year of my tenure here as state monitor. District administration should submit a semi-annual and annual report of all SRSA and ARC funded activities and programs, including personnel evaluations. This is part and parcel of the recommendations that are included, or the directives that are included in Dr. Rose's letter to the district about SRSA and ARC funding and how it is to be managed and monitored. The second recommendation here is to produce a SOP, a standard operating procedure, which is a manual or a document or a source where one can look back and see what are the procedures for performing the task. So produce an SOP for onboarding new employees and substitute teachers to the district by March 1st, 2022. The SOP should be presented to executive cabinet and principals for feedback before sharing the final draft at the HR committee of the whole. This is an opportunity to have something archived that tells employees and substitute teachers what the expectations are, what are the procedures as it relates to them being successful in their positions. This is particular of great importance because we have so many substitutes and there's such a turnover of new employees that it's just important to have something in place so that they can be successful. Governance and programmatic decision-making. As you can see, the categories in the new financial plan are the same as they were in the previous financial plan. That did not change. RCSD board and district leadership will conduct a work session a minimum of twice a year to reassess each phase of the facilities modernization plan. Fortunately, we received word a few weeks ago that the district has been granted the phase 3 of the FMP, Facilities Modernization Plan, to the tune of almost $500 million. So I think it's important that at least twice a year a work session takes place so that board members and the public is aware of the status of these facilities, how they're being modernized, what's the status of monies being spent, what's the status of the academic programs that are going into these facilities, and with an equity lens, a facilities lens, academic and fiscal. So that people are fully aware of the status of these programs and how well these buildings are being modernized, and if there are any challenges that we should be aware of before we come to the close of phase 3. Conduct a financial audit of the RCSD athletic department by July 1st. As many may be aware or may not be aware, we have new leadership for the athletic department, and this is an opportunity to set some baseline understandings around the financial status of the athletics department. So new leadership can start with a baseline understanding of the true financial picture of the entire athletic department for the district. Evaluate the efficiency of the print shop and provide a report to the superintendent, state monitor, and the finance committee by July 2022. The print shop, not sure of the fiscal status of the print shop or the necessity of the print shop, given new technologies, given the availability of and capacity of printing across the district. I think it's important to evaluate the efficiency of this print shop and determine whether it's something to keep, something to modernize, something to eliminate before moving forward beyond July 2022 into future budgets.
Dr. Jallow, pardon me, it's just getting increasingly difficult to understand. There's like a little bit of a hum and almost like a metallic sound when you're talking. I don't know.
Really, I have nothing on here.
You don't? Okay, I don't know if maybe you could get just a little closer to your
Okay,
screen.
does that help?
That does, thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, appreciate it.
So next slide, please. General Fiscal District Administration should submit a semi-annual and annual report of all SRSA and ARP-funded activities and programs, including personnel evaluations. This, once again, is also, are we going back? Am I repeating? This is an opportunity. Okay, here we go. Legal findings. This is another category in the finance department. Effective immediately, increase the use of independent legal counseling, legal counsel when appropriate by RCSD board and administration. Increase the use of independent legal services to negotiate collective bargaining agreements by July 1st, 2022. I think this is a necessary component, just to go back a little bit, so that you have independent thought and intervention in terms of how contracts are negotiated and other matters that come up that require independent legal counsel. I'm not suggesting that legal counsel should replace current counsel or the legal department, but I think the opportunity to use independent legal counsel should be welcomed and used when appropriate. Pilot participatory equity-based budget practices beginning with the development of the 22-23 district budget. This is another important piece. I think that this is a specific way to show that the district is committed to equity and access, where how we spend our money is very much indicative of how we feel about being equitable and providing equity and access as it relates to our students, our programming, how we spend our money. And so I think that this is a step in the right direction. This was actually a recommendation that came from within the organization, and I wanted to include it in the plan. Organizational structure and internal operational efficiency. Effective immediately initiate a minimum of 4 strategies for implementation to reduce the rising cost of utilities in the district. I think this is an area that has had honorable mention in many different meetings and situations, but I think it's important to put it in the plan as a way to possibly monitor and perhaps reduce costs of utilities in the district. I think we have a responsibility to be efficient in this area, and I think it warrants participation or in this plan. Establish a fund and fund a charter school coordinator position to serve as a liaison between charter schools, SED, SUNY, and the district in the 22-23 district budget. This is part of the legislative, recommended legislative agenda. Charter schools is a significant impact on the district in terms of the number of students in charter schools, the number of charter schools currently present, and the number of charter schools proposed for the community at large. So I think that a coordinator to represent the district and negotiate with the charter schools and SUNY and SED and serve as a liaison is an important position that thus far does not exist. Create an urban campus renewal position to accommodate the growing district and community needs associated with implementation of closing, reconfiguring, and rezoning RCSD schools in the 22-23 district budget. This person would also have responsibilities, I believe, for oversight and support of the FMP that was just awarded a few weeks ago that I mentioned earlier. Transportation findings, conduct an audit of the following departments: transportation, facilities, food service, and operations by January 2023. This is a division that's quite large and has been ably led thus far, but I think that it is a division that is growing by leaps and bounds, and will, with the FMP and other things that are happening within the district, will require the district leadership to look at those departments and see if there are efficiencies or there are ways to audit and determine what is going on in those departments, and do you want all those departments to remain under one division, or should they be separated, or are there other things? It's just an opportunity to look and examine those departments for efficiencies, and that's pretty much it. Effective immediately initiate a minimum of 4 strategies for implementation to reduce district reliance on transportation, and submit to the state monitor, which includes actions and outcomes. I think that it is important that we continue to look at transportation. The district has started to look at transportation, and the community has responded to some early thoughts and recommendations and presentations on such. But I still think that it warrants examination, where we get our transportation, how we use our transportation, who gets transportation. I think these are areas that still require additional review. Now on to the academic plan. The academic plan is separated into 5 different areas: turnaround leadership, talent development, instructional transformation, culture shift, systems, resources, and structures. As in the financial plan over the last year or so, overall, the recommendations within each of these areas, 80% of the turnaround leadership recommendations that were rated were satisfactory, 50% for talent development, 23% for instructional transformation, 50% of the recommendations under culture shift, and 59% of those recommendations under systems, resources, and structures. Overview of the school district academic performance. The initiative to supply updated curriculum resources for all schools must be noted and acknowledged. This is a significant area that the district should be acknowledged and thanked for, because when we first came to this district, we saw many resources that were quite outdated. We saw resources that were inconsistent across the district. And I think the Division of Teaching and Learning under the leadership of the CAO have done great things with their team to address this issue. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Comprehensive assessment program, there have been great efforts made in this area, and I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that. The opportunity to determine how our children are doing, whether it's acquiring the English language, or whether it's math performance, or how well they did on AP exams and other exams. I think it's important information for teachers and administrators to develop programming that best suits the needs of the students that they're serving. Transition bilingual education and special education under the supervision of the CAO. I think that's a huge step in the right direction, and also wanted to acknowledge that. On a lesser side, in terms of areas for growth, the chronic absenteeism rate continues to undercut the success of this district. It is very important that we reach out to community partners and look at our data and unpack our data to a more finite place to determine strategies from near and far about how to address this. We can put teachers, programs, new schools, we can do all of that. But if children are not coming to school, this undercuts our ability to be successful in this district. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Accountability status for schools. This is another area that is an area for growth. The number of receivership schools and schools still need of improvement. CSI schools and TSI schools also as an area of growth for the district, and would be best if I didn't acknowledge those areas of growth. This once again just speaks to the academic performance as it relates to high school graduation rates. You've probably seen this chart before. This has been presented at various board meetings before, and want to acknowledge the growth, but want to also acknowledge the need for more, the need for greater growth, and the need to address the high school graduation rate. And very similar to what I said before, items like knowing our data to determine what children need and where they are successful and where they still need support, and looking at our data as it relates to absenteeism have a direct impact on this data here as it relates to how many students successfully enter the district as ninth graders and in 4 years graduate successfully to be college and career ready 4 years later. Updates to the state monitor academic plans. So in the first area of turnaround leadership, district administration should implement a plan to afford earned and bounded autonomy to receivership schools beginning in the 22-23 school year. The research is pretty clear about the things that schools need to turn around, and there is considerable literature out there around the autonomy to be able to make decisions based on the needs of the students that are in these schools, so that they can better serve those students, better serve those teachers, better serve those administrators, to become a unit that is successful and comes out of status and becomes recognized as a school in good standing and beyond. Effective immediately create a work calendar that affords school chiefs a minimum of 3 uninterrupted days providing direct services in assigned schools. This is critical. The chiefs are a critical force in this district, and there have been many who have lamented about from the principals lamenting about the need for support. And one of their first lines of support are the chiefs. And the best way for chiefs to support principals as they support our schools is for them to be in schools where the principals are. So there's plenty of work to be done at central office that requires the input and the expertise of chiefs, but they're also needed at the schools. So somehow to bifurcate their time between central office work and work in the schools is how I was hoping to address when this recommendation was put in the plan. Implementation of the laws and regulations should be examined with an intent to exercise the powers of the superintendent by January 2022. This is very similar to a previous recommendation, but I wanted to be more explicit in what was meant by that, because I need to encourage the district to recognize that this is an area where we need to grow. We need to reduce or eliminate the number of receivership schools. And there are powers and opportunities that I think can be tapped by the superintendent and her team to afford receivership schools more tools to no longer be recognized as receivership schools. And so that was my attempt in the language of this particular recommendation. Talent development, establish and maintain current standard operating procedures for each RCSD department to facilitate onboarding, accountability, and supervision throughout the district. Accountability is critical. We talked about onboarding before, but accountability, millions of dollars are spent in this district in making sure that people understand what the expectations are of their jobs, where there could be an area of growth, where I believe there's an area of growth, is the accountability. How do we help people be held accountable for the duties and responsibilities aligned to their jobs? So one of the ways that we can take a step in that direction is to provide direction through an SOP, standard operating procedures, for how one can hold people accountable for their jobs as it relates to supervising and supporting folks in their positions, helping schools, help children be successful. So accountability and supervision, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What are the expectations? Are there any timelines? Are there any forms? That would all be included in the procedure. And that's something that one could refer to when they need support in these areas. So that was the purpose for this recommendation. Effective immediately, all school and district leadership positions with an oversight for receivership schools shall include the participation of the state monitor in the interview and selection process. There's language around that in terms of SEDs being informed when leadership changes take place at receivership schools. I think that this kind of solidifies that link between the district, myself, and SED as relates to receivership schools. Leadership is critical of receivership schools. The selection of leadership, therefore, is also critical. And I think that the state monitor should be a part of that in the effort to reduce the number of receivership schools. Is it a direct link? Not exactly, but is it an important link? Absolutely. Instructional transformation by the 31st of May, develop or modify the following policies. This is critical. What is your grading policy? What is your retention policy? What is your promotion policy? When is the last time, does it exist? When is the last time it was looked at? Does it need modification? Does it need elimination? What does it need? Let's look at it. Let's make sure it's in user-friendly language. Let's make sure not only teachers understand it, but students understand it, their families understand it, and that it becomes part and parcel of the secondary course catalog that is to be developed for the district. Effective July 1st, 2022, implement the NYSED curriculum for students with interrupted formal education, also known as SIFE. This is critical. You don't have to create it. You don't have to buy it. it is there, and I'm suggesting that this curriculum is used for the SIPE students that are currently getting their education in this district. I also have there include appropriate funding beyond Title III to support implementation with fidelity. Title III is not enough money to support all the ways that we should or could support these students and others as well. So I think it's important that where possible, we lean on our partners at SCD who have already done the work for us and incorporate this into the instructional program currently in the district. By December 30th, 2022, establish an action plan to address the disproportionately low graduation rates and disproportionately high dropout rates of Black and Hispanic RCSD male students. There was funding to address this directly in the library's keeper, but I think the district needs to do more. When one looks at the data is striking with the number of male students who are not graduating, who are dropping out, and we're losing a significant sector of the citizens of the city and a significant portion of our student population. This is critical that these numbers and this data turns around. So I thought it rose to the level of importance to be included in the academic plan. Culture Shift district and school websites should also provide easy multilingual access to the following: the source of funding information, ARP funding information, current and previous year's budget, extended learning opportunities for students, current course catalog, revised high school selection process, major district initiatives. If you want parents to be partners, then you have to make sure that they have every opportunity to understand everything that's going on that impacts their children and impacts their lives as long as they are students and part of this district. One of the ways we can do this, is to make sure that the language is available for people to access the information, and then they can participate fully in these key areas. And this is just a start. Okay. The superintendent or designee will meet with the executive steering committee of the school-based planning teams quarterly to exchange information on needs and opportunities to improve outcomes for RCSD students. Don't know much else to say about that, but I do think that this is an opportunity to have two-way conversations and communication with key individuals closer to the school level on a regular basis, who have responsibilities for making decisions at the school level, who can then impact decisions made at the district level, and then vice versa. So I think this is a real critical leverage point and opportunity. District administration should provide proof of adherence to all bylaws of the Bilingual Educational Council by January 31st and September 30th of every year. I also think this is very critical because having met with this organization and listening to their concerns, I think that checking in twice a year with proof that bylaws are not only being read and understood and acknowledged, but they are being activated upon. And one can expect twice a year to see proof of that activation and proof of that work. So I thought that was important enough that that should be included also in the academic plan. Systems, resources, and structures. Effective January 1st, 2022, identify a minimum of 4 strategies the district will utilize during the 21-22 and 22-23 school years to improve key metrics in the consent decree and outcomes for students with IEPs. We just have to be more direct and purposeful in our strategies and our outcomes when it comes to the consent decree. Everybody knows about the consent decree, but I think rising and lifting this language in the academic plan will make more people knowledgeable and will make the administration understand how important this is, that we have these strategies, that they have been thought through, and that we can see outcomes from these selected strategies that make the future of the consent decree come to an end that we can foresee and that we can move on to, other conversations around special ed, around how children are truly performing and truly participating in the educational programs in the district, how IEPs are being written with fidelity and are being followed with fidelity in every school, every day, in every classroom for all students with IEPs. And so I think it's important for the administration to acknowledge the need for strategies. I identified 4, maybe there are more, but I think if we minimize it to 4, we can concentrate a little deeper and produce outcomes that the administration would be proud of, and outcomes that we will see for the students that will make a difference in their lives. Effective during the same time, January 1st, 2022, a minimum of 3 innovative and evidence-based strategies at each grade span, K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, the district will utilize during the 2022 and the 22-23 to address unfinished learning utilizing SERSA and ARP funding. This is something that we developed together with SED to acknowledge the strategies that we want to see specified through SERSA and ARP. So we find that this was very important, and we agreed that this should be in the academic plan so that individuals can understand exactly how the district is addressing unfinished learning with specific strategies that are innovative and evidence-based. After school is fine, and tutoring is fine, but how can we be innovative? How can we try new strategies? How can we look at research and look at what other districts similar to ours and districts that are not similar to ours, and find ways to address unfinished learning for the learning that may have been missed during the pandemic. The money is there, certainly. Now let's find innovative evidence-based ways to utilize those monies for this issue. Effective immediately, all recommendations from the Medicaid Compliance Officer for improvement and compliance written to the superintendent and the state monitor are corrected with supporting evidence by the special education department within 60 days. But it was important to include this. It's one thing to make recommendations. It's another thing to see evidence that those recommendations were implemented with outcomes, hopefully positive outcomes. So that was the purpose of putting this into the plan as well, to make sure that we see what comes after the recommendations. We don't just walk away after we hear great recommendations or issues are identified, only to come back a month or 2 later and see those same issues and those same concerns. Improvement plans continue to contain a series of programmatic recommendations designed to improve the academic and fiscal performance of the district. The plan will also include addressing the provisions contained in any action plan set forth by the department. What is meant by that is there are CAPS, corrective action plans from the bilingual office at SED. There are corrective action plans from the special ed department of SED. So by virtue, and the consent decree, by virtue of any corrective action plans, any consent decrees, by default, they are included in these academic and financial plans. So that's important to note in that first bullet. The second bullet is to remember that a plan is a plan. And as noted during the last year, there were modifications, there were changed in dates, changes in evidence that would be produced, and that will be no different this time around. Disagreements between the monitor and the board on aspects of this plan must be brought to the attention of the commissioner in writing for resolution. So any disagreements with the plan are put in writing by the board and sent to Commissioner Rosa, and she will resolve. So that brings my presentation to a conclusion. Once again, can be reached at 585-474-0843 and the email that is listed on this slide. There are about another 2 weeks time. There's opportunity to send comments and concerns or make additions to this plan. If one deems it necessary, I welcome those opportunities. But once again, oh, and I also want to mention that on December 14th, it is hope that at that time, the board will vote on these plans and move forward. Thank you for your attention this evening, and I turn it back to Dane.
Thank you, Dr. Jallow. Folks, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, there are no individuals that had signed up to make comment tonight at the hearing. However, as Dr. Jallow referenced, and I referenced at the beginning and she referenced in the last slide, there is still time to submit written public comment through the email address that was listed in the PowerPoint, that's statemonitor@rcsdk12.org. We would encourage you to do so. And I see Commissioner Powell's, yes. Dr. Joe, will this slide deck be posted on the website so folks can take a look at it?
Sure, yes.
Great. Thank you. So folks, if you want to take another look at the slide deck, the email and the phone number are there also to make comment. We thank everyone for joining us tonight. I believe that concludes our hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.